Joined by Ulash Thakore. She is the crisis counselor professor at San Francisco State University. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, we've seen it. We just saw it there with Tara's package. For nearly 10 days now, we've seen families going through this very difficult process, mourning the loss of a loved one to, mourning the loss of their home and their most cherished memories. How is this psychologically impacting these families, especially the fire victims there in those communities?
What I would say is that a lot of people are in shock right now, almost in active mode. And that's what happens where you're just doing and you're numb. You can't sleep. You're very active, but also the long-term effects are much greater than the short-term right now. Even for families that are far, so we know a lot of families, like if you're a college student who's watching your family member go through that, it's almost they feel so helpless. And they feel they can't do anything, so there's that two-pronged part.
And what are some of the long-term effects?
So in terms of long-term effects, psychologically, I would say depression is really big. The trauma piece really starts kicking in, where people get triggered. So if they see another fire or hear about it in the news, they get triggered very quickly.
So similar to kind of PTSD when our, military vets come home and they, sounds can trigger certain emotions in them. It's kind of similar to that?
Absolutely, and it's, as you've probably noticed in the news, that it's not even emotional. It's also the not having a job, the economic part, and the long-term piece on how do I rebuild my life again.
And you're talking about those long-term effects. Can we see those long-term effects with children? As we saw in Tara's piece, there's a family of 8 with 6 children going through this. You've got children who are returning to where their home used to be to see nothing but rubble. How do they cope with that? How do parents talk to their kids, and what can they do to help them get through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I would say to parents who are dealing with that is to give the child as much space as they need to talk and not to push them, because they may not be ready depending on their age. And if they are ready to talk, but you as a parent can't talk to them, it's okay to seek help, because I know in a lot of families there's a lot of stigma in seeking counselling and mental health. Yeah. But if it's so overwhelming for you, that child may need that support. So I would highly recommend that. And then when they are ready to talk about it, to just give them that space to talk.
What about some of the other families? So you have, children who have been directly impacted by the fires along with their families, and you have children who may have friends in school or, in the other neighborhood who may not have been impacted but are saying, hey, mommy, daddy, so-and-so's home is completely gone in a fire and I'm still seeing these fires. What do I do? How do we feel safe? Yeah. What can parents say?
Firstly, it depends on their age. What I would say is, like, to a 5-6-year-old, to give them the space to really talk about it. But also it might be that, I would highly recommend that, not letting the child watch as much of the scenes, because the scenes are really graphic and it can be really triggering. So how can you kind of just break that out so that they can process it and understand? And to really then, like, if the children, you're noticing your child is having nightmares or terrors, then there might be that they're having trouble actually processing that at nighttime, to perhaps get some help.
And those are some of the warning signs, right?
Warning signs like, not being able to sleep, not talking about it, because, we assume that people want to talk about it. Some people don't, especially children.
Well, a lot of great information out there for parents to, to seek out advice or help if they need it, and we appreciate you being here with us to talk about this. Thank you so much, Ulash. It's a pleasure having you here. Frank?